What is it that motivates people to do the things they do, live the way they live, achieve the goals they achieve? And while there's certainly no single answer to so large and complicated a question, I believe the overriding force which motivates us as persons is a thing I call choice of environment. Environment being the immediate world by which we're surrounded. Some people make this choice consciously, but I'm certain the great majority of people make the choice unconsciously as a result of environmental conditioning. As an example, consider the statistics regarding the financial condition of Americans over age 65. By far the great majority of retired workers over age 65 have no income other than Social Security payments, actually below the official poverty level. Yet if a working person saved only a dime out of each dollar he earned, and if he never made more than $6,000 a year in his entire life, he'd save $24,000 by the time he reached age 65. At very average interest rates, it would have come to $58,809.80. Now why, according to statistics, do only about 5 people out of 100 achieve financial independence during their lifetimes? Why are only 5 motivated to achieve financial independence, something which almost everyone will tell you he wants to achieve, would love to have? Well, it's here that we begin to see motivational forces at work. Motivation is closely linked to environment. Our normal reaction to environment is to act, think, and talk like the people by whom we are surrounded. Now, since only 5% achieve financial independence during their lifetimes, the odds are 80 to 20 that in any given case, a person is surrounded by those who are not thinking and working toward financial independence. Instead, he or she is surrounded by, and as a result, conforms to, a group which does not stress the importance of being financially independent. They've conformed to their environment, and I'm using finances as only one example. Other examples could be education, health, language, work, attitude, and so forth. These people can be said to be those who do not consciously choose their environment, but simply go along with the environment in which they find themselves. They don't think about it. Now, that would be fine if the statistic were reversed. If 80% of people could be said to be successful, the odds would be excellent if we just went along with the crowd. In that event, selecting an environment might not be too important. The odds would be in our favor. But this is not the case, and never has been. If a person does not choose of his own volition the environment in which he wants to live and raise his kids, the chances are about at least 80 to 20 that neither he nor his children will live in an environmental climate offering the best opportunities for success and the enjoyment of life. Let's take a hypothetical case and call him an average person in the free world. Although there's no such thing as an average person, the trouble comes from acting as though we're average. In this case of this so-called hypothetical average person, from the time he's born until about age 25, most of his life is spent in doing what others have told him to do. As a child, it's his parents, and they mold him much as a potter molds clay. He will talk as his mother and father talks. He thinks the way they think. If they think something is bad, he thinks it's bad. He tends to grow up in their religious faith, and very probably, ultimately, in the same political party. If they have deep-rooted prejudices, he will adopt them. When he reaches school age, he'll begin to emulate the other children. To a youngster in school, the most important thing on earth is to be liked. Acceptance and esteem in the eyes of his contemporaries, his peers, is his deepest craving. So he'll do what the others do. He'll dress as they'll dress. He wants to belong and to be liked. But remember, he's following people who do not know any more than he does. He isn't playing follow the leader. He's playing follow the follower. Of course it's important to be liked, but this is only a part of life. But to a youngster in school, on the average, being liked and doing what the other youngsters do is the most important thing in the world, and this vice-like pressure of conformity lasts for many years. Out of school, a young person may go into the military service. Here again, he's gripped by a vice of conformity, far greater even than he's known in school. He still acts like his peers and talks and thinks much as they do. It becomes a habit. And now he even looks exactly like them. Same shoes, clothes, actions, everything. He becomes a unit in a thing called the military. And while that's the way things have, unfortunately, had to be, the effects of such standardization is, of course, enormous. Now let's say our young person is 25, out of school, out of service. He goes back to his hometown. Let's say he's still single. For the first time in 25 years, he finds himself really on his own. He must make a decision as to what to do, and it's a little frightening. One day he's standing on a corner, not knowing just what to do, when he's met by an old friend from his school days, and the friend asks, "What are you doing?" "Nothing." "Why don't you come down and go to work where I work? It's a good job, the pay's regular, 40-hour week, fringe benefits, the whole thing." So he does, and that's often the end of him. By taking the job suggested by his friend, he's still going along with the gang, but he's also giving less attention to the selection of a career than he would give to selecting a shirt or a necktie. On the job, what's the most natural thing in the world for him to do? It's to continue to go along with the gang, isn't it? He's been doing it for 25 years. Why should he change now? So on the job, he looks around to see how the other guys are doing their work, and he begins doing his the same way. You see, no one has told him that he's living in the golden age that mankind has been dreaming of and building toward for thousands of years. No one's told him that from now on out, what happens to him will be in his hands, not his parents, not his teachers, not his commanding officers, not his associates, but it's all up to him from here on out. He has before him perhaps a half-century or more in the greatest age the world has known. Now what's he going to do with his most productive years? Well, with a steady job, he can marry someone, which he does. He then often goes out to a large suburban development and buys a house or rents an apartment that looks very much like every other house or apartment on the street for as far as the eye can see. Makes him feel comfortable. He belongs. What he actually does is disappear again, as he did in the classroom and in the service. He has a steady job, a spouse, a place to live, a new car, the biggest paycheck, and the highest standard of living in the world. A wonderful start in life. Now what does he do? Well, he works 40 hours a week. That leaves him 72 hours a week when he's neither working nor sleeping, about twice the time he spends on the job, earning a living for his spouse and future children. What does he do with his free 72 hours a week? Well, as a rule, he'll do the same thing his co-workers are doing with their free 72 hours a week. He doesn't do much of anything with them. On a typical afternoon, he quits work right on the dot, drives his little car to his little abode, goes into his little kitchen, kisses his little partner in life, and says, "I'm tired." It's believed he says this because he used to hear his parents and his grandparents say it in the days when people actually worked hard enough to get tired. The wonderful technological and sociological advances which have given him freedom from back-breaking toil and grinding poverty permit him to retain just that much more energy and good health. After dinner, as likely as not, he'll devote the rest of the evening to watching television. In this way, he's able to lose himself in worlds he must believe to be more interesting than his own. What he's actually doing is watching other people earning excellent incomes in the pursuit of their careers, while he doesn't make a nickel, and while his most valuable possession, time, is silently slipping away. All too frequently, he doesn't know how fortunate he is. He doesn't realize that for the first time in all the difficult centuries of man, he no longer needs to work from early morning until late at night, 6 days a week, just to earn enough to keep his family alive. Instead, he'll earn from $350,000 to $1 million or more. He has free time, lots of it, and he takes for granted a great many luxuries, which are the wonder and envy of 3/4 of all the human beings on earth, 90% of them. Furthermore, he can actually decide for himself what he wants to do with his life. He knows how to read and write, and the great books of the world are available to him in his local library. In short, he usually takes for granted all the wonders that have been given him. And with all of this, he lives in a minimum kind of existence, doing no more than he has to do to get by without too much discredit, hoping that times remain good so that he can keep his job. He thinks it's only natural that his company, his town, and his country should continue to improve, expand, and advance, but somehow he seems to believe it isn't necessary for him to do the same thing. Why does he live this way? Because this seems to be the way the rest of the people are living. And if they're living that way, well, he feels it must be all right. In fact, he doesn't even think about it. Now, here's a case of mass motivation, of playing follow the follower. Now, we know that our young, hypothetical person has tremendous abilities and potentialities intrinsically his own. There's no other human being on earth exactly like him, and there never has been. We know there are, within his job, wide fields of interest, which, if he knew about them, would change his life to one of excitement and make him a real contributor to the economy instead of a feeder. You have no boss save the clients you serve. Yet surrounding you and your very own people who still don't know the value of their own lives. They won't listen to hear the truth, nor learn and do the things of greatness. The average person, as I've said, will leave the profession before the end of his or her second year. Unfortunately, the average person walks down a narrow road while right in your office and stretching clear to the horizon are the rich, sunlit fields of opportunity. Between the average person and these fields, however, there's a tall hedge which shields them from view, and this hedge is called conformity. And until he breaks through and cuts his way through this thorny barrier, The average person will never see nor know the joys of living fully extended. But how can we do this? Well, first, we must begin to think. We must look at ourselves objectively for what we really are, distinct individuals with unlimited opportunities for development. We must determine where we now are. Second, we must ask ourselves some questions. Do I want to be like the people I'm following? Are these the people I want my children to be like? I know they're pretty good people, but do they know where they're going? Are they successful? Are they as successful as I want to be? If I continue to go along as I have in the past, where will I be 5 years from now? Am I operating at or near my peak efficiency? Am I really a professional, or have I been just doing enough to get by? Am I devoting a part of my time each day to thinking of ways and means by which I can increase my contribution? Am I adding to my own methods of operation those used by the most successful residential people on a daily basis? Am I really aware that my rewards in life will always, must always be in exact proportion to my service? Am I following an intelligent course for improving my mind and increasing my knowledge? Do I have a reading and study program? Do I think I already know enough? I expect my company, my community, and my country to improve with the passing of each year. But what am I doing personally to keep pace with this improvement, or to exceed it? Have I thought much and told my children about how lucky we are to live in a free society in which we can go where we please without having to ask for permission, work where we please and at the job of our choice, vote and worship as we please and say what we please? Am I aware of the responsibilities that go with that kind of freedom? The responsibility to produce as much as I can so my freedom may be maintained. The responsibility to become so effective even if times should become bad for a while, I could go right on providing for my family through the crisis. Third, when I get up in the morning, do I know exactly what it is I'm working toward? Do my life and my work have a clear direction and a worthwhile purpose? Or am I simply marking time and going along with the crowd? Am I motivated by what I really want out of life? Or am I mass motivated? Harry Emerson Fosdick once wrote, "No horse gets anywhere unless he's harnessed. No steam or gas ever drives anything until it's confined. No Niagara is ever turned into light and power until it's channeled. And no life ever grows great until it's focused, dedicated, disciplined." You see, it's actually easier to win. All we have to do is know some of the rules and follow them. P.G. Hamilton said that a strong life is like a ship of war, which has its own place in the fleet and can share in its strength and discipline, but can also go forth alone to the solitude of the infinite sea. We ought to belong to society and have our place in it, certainly, but be capable of an individual existence outside of it. And it's never too late, for with a purpose, a goal, a person will frequently do more and travel farther in a year than he might otherwise do in a lifetime without one.